Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach and today I am driving a 1989 Cadillac Allanté. Up front is a 4.5 liter V8. Down below is a 4-speed automatic transmission. Now, starting off the video with the weirdest sounding turn signal. Listen. That is only the start of how weird this car is. This is one of the strangest, weirdest, coolest cars I have ever driven. And we'll talk about that in a second. But let's get back to that 4.5 liter V8. Well, it's actually not a North Star V8. So the later half of the Allantés actually got the famed North Star V8 from Cadillac. This did not get the North Star, and I cannot be more thankful. I have had a bad time with the North Star, but this is good. That turn signal is gonna get real annoying. It makes a good amount of power. I'll put it up on the screen. And actually, at the time, 1989, this was the most torque a front-wheel drive vehicle had ever had. This was the torquiest front-wheel drive vehicle you could get, which is something very, very special, I guess. We're gonna kind of roll into it because you kind of have to roll into these older cars. It still gets up and goes. It still gets up and goes. It's not fast. This is not a fast car. Don't get that twisted. This is a very, very smooth car. It just goes. It just goes. Oh, you want to go now? Okay. But what's interesting is that the gas pedal goes down about 25%, and then it feels like it stops. You feel like you're flooring it, giving it 25%. But then if you really put your foot into it, you give it that extra muscle, then it opens up that other 75%, and the car will actually downshift and actually start moving. That's really interesting because the crowd that was going to buy this car was an older crowd, and that is definitely a grandpa feature. Like I said, paired to it, automatic transmission, nothing really too crazy there. And last but not least, it is front-wheel drive. This is a front-wheel drive V8. I don't know if I've driven a front-wheel drive V8 yet. GM is really the only people that actually made front-wheel drive V8s for quite some time, at least in the mainstream. So let's talk about the interior. We have a lot to go through. In front of me, I have digital gauges. You guys know me, I absolutely love digital gauges. They are the best thing in the world. On the left is my tachometer, on the right is my speedometer, as well as it gives me my speedometer in actual digits. This is absolutely amazing for 1989. Then on the far right, I have these little health bar looking coolant temperature, oil pressure, fuel, trip odometer, and odometer. It's so out of a video game. It looks like something of that sort, and I absolutely love that. This is the best gauge cluster I've seen in 2020. That's it. This is the best. This is the coolest. I think it's so cool. Down below the gauges, we have a ton of buttons. On the left, I have my interior lights on and off, my parking lights, my fog lights, and then I have my headlight switches. But Cadillac didn't want to call them the headlight switches, so they called it the Twilight Sentinel. Twilight Sentinel. What is that code for? Headlights. Cadillac, what are you doing? Why? Just call them headlights. Why is it Twilight Sentinel? I don't know. To the right of the steering wheel, I have cruise control, my power mirrors, my wipers, and my headlight washers, which you guys know I love headlight washers. But other than that, the steering wheel is massive. It is massively huge. To the left of me on the door, I do have my power locks, power windows, as well as two different memory seat options. Again, 1989. Two different memory seat options, as well as an exit setting that'll move the seat as far back as it can physically go in order to allow you the most amount of room to exit the vehicle. I love that. In the center, we get a giant center control stack. Up at the very top is the electronic climate control. We have a bunch of different settings there, a bunch of buttons for the climate controls, and they are not single use. I'll talk about that in a second. Down below is the driver information center. Right now it's telling me my outside temperature, the date, my time, things like that. If you threw a check engine light or needed to bring it into the dealer, how would they know what was wrong with it? There's actually a way, and I don't know how. It's some sort of cheat code where you press a certain order of the air conditioning buttons and it'll tell you then on the driver information screen what is wrong with the car. So you push the air conditioning buttons to tell you what is wrong with your engine. I don't know why they made it that, but it is that way. Down on the driver information screen, I mean, we can do time and temperature, elapsed time, average speed, average economy, instant economy. So right now, range, fuel used, and my reset button. That is very intricate. I mean, those are things that you would find in modern cars, but you have to remember this car is over 30 years old and it doesn't show it. Down below that, we do have our radio and cassette player. We have our different tune, treble, bass, fade, you know, all of the different buttons that you would want. Play, repeat, fast forward, seek, anything you want to do, you can do with this cassette player. Although it has a DNR button, and I have no idea what that does, and neither does the owner. So if anyone has an Allanté and knows what DNR does, please leave a comment. Now, before we get away from the radio, two more things. First of all, it says Symphony Sound on it, which is a quality of the sound from Cadillac. Pretty interesting. But also, this car came with, because this is actually owned by the grandson of the original owner, this car came with a golden cassette tape. Yes, golden cassette tape on how to use the vehicle, on how to use all of the buttons. So if you ever wanted to know, you could pop in that golden cassette and you would instantly know. Down below that, we have the Pininfarina badge. We'll talk about that later and why that's important. Then we have the shifter. The shifter feels great. It has a nice, satisfying clunk into each gear. It's nice and smooth into each gear. I absolutely love that. Then I do have, of course, an ashtray and cigarette lighter because it's the 80s. I'm surprised it doesn't have a mirror in there. And then the center console and glove box. Now, opening the center console, you'll see the fuel door and the trunk. However, this car had one option and one option only, and this Allanté has it. Car phone! This has a built-in car phone, and I'll put it up to my mic. It works! It's a car phone that works! I guess you would go like this. I've never used a car phone. I don't know. It's a car phone! How 80s is that? That is so, so cool. Unfortunately, it doesn't work anymore. You can't physically call anyone because AT&T wants you to pay for a plan. I'm all right. I'm good. Thanks, though. The seats are very comfortable. They are made by Recaro, and they're incredibly comfortable. My driver's seat, like I said, memory seats, but it's also 6-way adjustable. You can adjust this thing any which way. I think if you hit all the buttons together, it actually crashes the stock market. So be careful of that. But they are very, very comfortable seats, and that's the whole thing about driving this car is it's extremely comfortable. But we'll put a pin in that for now. We don't have back seats, so let's talk about the exterior. I think the car looks okay. It's not the most drawing, most fantastic vehicle I've ever seen. However, it was designed by Pininfarina. And what that means is Pininfarina is a very popular design company in Italy. They were formed in 1930 and they've designed a plethora of vehicles, such as the Cadillac Eldorado, or more so known to me as my childhood, the Ecto 1 from Ghostbusters was designed by the same company that designed this car. The Ferrari Testarossa, ever heard of that one? Designed by the same people who designed this car. And so, it was designed in Italy and built in Italy. The bodies of this car were built in Italy and sent over here via 747. Cadillac bought airplanes to put the bodies of this car onto to ship across the Atlantic. I'm not kidding. They were able to send 56 cars per plane out of the 21,000 of these that they made, which still is a low number, but when you break it up, this is how many flights they technically had to take in order to get all these cars over here, because then the power plants, the engines, suspension, transmissions, were all put in Detroit. So they would load up these Boeing 747s full of Allantés and fly them to Detroit in order to get their engines, transmissions, and everything else assembled. That's insane to me. That is 80s access to a T. No one does that anymore. And so you might be wondering, what does Allanté mean? Does it mean, is it like elevate, or you know, Allah, or like some godly light shedding being? You're close. Allanté was computer generated. The people at Cadillac made a computer generate 1,500 different names, and this one just sounded the best. Allanté just sounded cool, I guess. That's literally it. Now, this car does have a soft top. However, it's currently not working, which is unfortunate, but that's what happens with 30-year-old cars. But you can actually put the top down. Now, something I wanted to point out about the Allanté is the owner's manual. I normally don't go through owner's manuals, but the owner showed me something that I absolutely have to share. What I'm about to share with you is the first page of the owner's manual for the Cadillac Allanté. The penalty of leadership. In every field of human endeavor, he that is first must perpetually live in the white light of publicity. Whether the leadership be vested in a man or in a manufactured product, the reward and the punishment are always the same. The reward is widespread recognition. The punishment, fierce denial and detraction. If he achieve a masterpiece, it will be set 1,000,000 tongues a wagging. The Fultron could never build a steamboat, while as old as the world and as old as human passion. Envy, fear, greed, ambition, and the desire to surpass. That which is good or great makes itself known, no matter how loud the clamor of denial. That which deserves to live, lives. Here's the thing. They only made 21,000 of these, like I said, and people have very mixed reviews. When this car was brand new, this car was $61,000 in 1989, which roughly translates to $120,000 for a two-seater convertible. Yes, it's very, very nice. It's very plush, but this car was expensive, and that's why they didn't make them for very long, and they didn't make many of them. But I have to say, I have been geeking out over this review for the last 2 weeks since I've discovered that this car exists. I find this car absolutely fascinating. This is the peak pinnacle access 80s car. It has the red interior. It has a big V8 that doesn't really move you all that fast. It has gadgets and screens everywhere. They have a button to do everything except make you lunch. It was designed in Italy and sent over here. I mean, I love this car so very much. It's so interesting. It's so unique. It's so different. And so if you ever get a chance, please stop and just take a look at the Allanté. If you ever see one when you're out and about, just take a look. Appreciate it, because you don't see cars like this anymore. This car was extra for the sake of being extra. At the end of the day, this is not the fastest car I've ever driven. This is not the most comfortable car I've ever driven. This is not the most expensive, but gosh, it might be one of the most interesting. It really might be one of the most interesting cars I've ever learned about. I am incredibly thankful for Alec for letting me take out his Allanté. I know how much this means to him. His grandfather was the original owner, the original purchaser of this Allanté, and they've kept it in the family. Only 69,000 miles on this thing. It is an absolute museum piece, and I am more than grateful that he let me take this thing out. It is absolutely amazing, and what a slice of history. What a slice of automotive history. So for all the people out there that absolutely hate the Allanté, I hope you get bent, because I love this car. I really, really do. It has my heart through and through. It's so weird. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.